Hey guys, and welcome to another Sasquatch Theory podcast. In this interview, we have Eric Mintel from Eric Mintel Investigates. He is a paranormal and cryptid researcher, a filmmaker, and a book writer. Oh yeah, he is also a jazz musician. Eric wanted to come on the show and talk about his Bigfoot experiences in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey and his strange encounters with the Beast of Bray Road. I wanted to personally thank all the listeners for supporting the channel and making all of this possible. If you guys can, follow the channel, and if you've been unfollowed or unsubscribed for any reason, be sure to check. If you have a Bigfoot encounter that you would like to share here on Sasquatch Theory, feel free to contact me sometime. Alright guys, let's dive into our next Bigfoot interview here on Sasquatch Theory. All right, Eric, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, and I'm glad that you reached out and sent me your YouTube channel, and it's called Eric Mintel Investigates. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So, Eric, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from, and your Bigfoot encounters and experiences from the very beginning, please.
You got it. I basically am from here in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is about, I would say, about 60 miles northeast of Philadelphia, if some of your viewers would know. Um, I am, an only child, have been a jazz musician most of my life with my jazz quartet, the Eric Mintel Quartet. Been about 31 years as a band leader. And people, know me as a jazz man, but we've had some wonderful experiences and opportunities that way. We've played at the White House for two presidents. We played for President Clinton in 1998 and then 2011 for President Obama. And then we've played at the Kennedy Center, the United Nations. So my job as a jazz musician has always been to try to get jazz to the masses that way. And it's been wonderful. So we've had some great opportunities in putting out CDs and tours, and we still play all the time. But I've always loved the paranormal. And as a young kid, have always heard incredible stories here in Bucks County, whether it's ghosts, UFOs, even Bigfoot, right here in Bucks County. So I grew up with all these wonderful stories and these incredible venues and locations here where, we've got ties to the Underground Railroad, Washington, slept in a lot of these locations around here. We've got, the Delaware River is right around the corner here. So we're in a rich area of paranormal. So in 2016, just real briefly, I started my channel. It was Eric Mintel. I started my TV show. It was originally called Bucks County Paranormal Investigations, but I changed it to Eric Mintel Investigates because we quickly started getting interest in people wanting us to go into different locations and investigate their venue, whether it was a bed and breakfast or whether it was an inn, a hotel, any kind of location like that. Also, we started doing on-site locations with Bigfoot, and another creature we'll talk about a little bit too is the Beast of Bray Road. So we started getting into a lot of the investigations of cryptids really early on. So fast forward now to I should backtrack to 2020. Um, I was connected with a Bigfoot researcher named Eric Spinner, and he's in Medford, New Jersey. Has a health food store down there, and but he's an incredible Bigfoot researcher. He's gotten hair samples, um, just tracks, casted tracks, and he's around the Medford, New Jersey area. So a lot of his activity has been happening in the Pine Barrens in the Wharton State Forest. So I connected with Eric, and we did a short video down in the Pine Barrens in 2020 during, at the end of like July, I think August. COVID was, of course, was in full bloom, and but we needed to stay. I personally needed to stay creative, so we were doing videos, and we went down to the Pine Barrens, met up with Mark Moran, he's the editor of Weird New Jersey magazine, and we were talking about some of these Bigfoot sightings that were happening in New Jersey. And a lot of people, and I'm sure your listeners would probably identify New Jersey with, and the Pine Barrens with with the Jersey Devil. And the Jersey Devil is supposed to be a large. Well, let me say this: there's so many different descriptions of this creature, but the Jersey Devil's been described as a large winged type, like horse creature, or it could be as small as a good-sized turkey or a dog, with wings. But there's always been inconsistent reports that way. But I had always thought that perhaps the Bigfoot encounters that people were having, maybe that it's a misidentification of Bigfoot, of the Jersey Devil sightings. It was Bigfoot all along, because people were getting Eric was getting reports of this creature crossing the road. He had witnesses that said that they saw this 8 foot shadow cross the road in front of them, and actually a solid form figure on 2 legs. And then other reports were of these creatures going into neighborhoods, taking the garbage out of the garbage and going back into the woods on 2 legs. So this, alerted all of us to really get into the Pine Barrens and really see what is going on down there and what is happening. So let's see. This was October 11th of 2021. We decided, look, let's do a video of the Pine Barrens Bigfoot. Let's go down there and see what's going on and see if we could capture anything on video. So a lot of times, I have to say this too. In a lot of our investigations, I go into a lot of these skeptically because I had always been on the fence with Bigfoot. I was like looking at a lot of shows and saying, these people are like whooping and hollering for this thing, and I always said to myself, is that what they really sound like? But my whole perspective got changed that night. So this encounter happened on, like I said, October 11th of 2021. We got down to an area in the Pine Barrens called the Bowl. Now, the bowl is exactly what it sounds like. It's high on either side and it's low in the middle. So we basically, like you're sitting in a bowl. So we went down, set up base camp. We were about 5 miles into the Pine Barrens. And if anybody knows the Pine Barrens, it's like, I mean, it's thousands and thousands of acres of just wilderness and dense forest. So we were in this area that, I mean, it was so, as soon as I got out of the truck, it was like that sense of isolation hit you. And so I get out and we went about, I guess, about 600 feet into the woods, and we set up base camp down in the bowl, and we set up chairs. And the first thing we did was we started talking about, Eric and his other research partner was with us, Art Mack. We started talking about his protocols. What does he do in his research? How is he, getting this evidence, and what is he doing? Joining me was my spirit medium that's on a lot of our cases, Dominic Sattel. Dominic and I have been friends since high school, and he's a spirit medium. So hunting Bigfoot was completely out of his wheelhouse. So this whole thing was completely like, foreign to him. But we got down there, and we really brought Dominic down to see what the other paranormal aspects of the Pine Barrens would be. So we're sitting there. Eric's telling us about his tree knocks, the activity that he's gotten, what he does with the audio recordings that they put high end audio up if they get any kind of like knocks or any kind of any howls or anything like that. So we're sitting there, and we're videotaping the whole thing, and uh, Art and Dominic are talking, and Dominic was asking Art about the Bigfoot UFO connection and asking him, is there any kind of, do you think there's any truth to that? And Art was kind of like on the fence with that, really didn't think that there was any kind of connection to that. But as Art is talking, we all hear a whoop coming from the woods behind us. And we go back and we stopped everything. And we go, wait a minute, everybody heard that. And then we went back, and Eric had high powered audio going. So we heard this howl on the audio, or this it was a whoop, really just a whoop. So with that, Eric's wife Heather was there too. She goes to answer it back, and all of a sudden they're having a conversation. It's whooping, and she's whooping, it's whooping back, and it was like not once, but like 5, 6 times. And you could hear it on my video, clear as a bell, on the first video we did on our YouTube channel at Eric Mintel Investigates. It's the Pine Barrens Bigfoot, and it blew me away. I mean, there was something there, and the thing is, what people have been seeing and kind of encountering are like a juvenile Bigfoot, like a small Bigfoot, something that's walking around on two legs, and when that we heard that whoop, that's what it sounded like. It was sounded like it was like a higher pitched. It wasn't a deep whoop. But what happened was we're there on site, and all of a sudden we hear this big rustling going on behind us. Now, if people could picture this, we've just got nothing but night vision going. And I even on the video turned off all the lights to let everybody know what we were seeing was absolute pitch black. It was total darkness, unless, with the exception of a little light and our and the night vision. So we all of a sudden hear this big rustling sound going behind us, and we think that that was like the big mama Bigfoot going to get the juvenile, because as the whooping was going on, it sounded like it was getting further and further away, and that was the most spookiest night we ever encountered that way in the Pine Barrens. And it really confirmed that there's something there. There's something that is there, because there's nobody there. There was no other people there camping, no nothing, because this is an area that really not a lot of people can even get into. And it's a beautiful cedar swamp too. But so after the whoops were over, we were, of course, we're all jumped up, we're like all excited. And then we decided to try to do some more, some more investigating. Eric did some tree knocks. And I mean, we were getting activity all night long. We're hearing screams in the woods. It was just an incredible night. So we left that investigation with more questions than answers, and that was October 11th of 2021. So fast forward, we wanted to do a follow up in the worst way from that, and of course, you know how it is. Where everybody's got stuff going on. I'm shooting video and on locations and all kinds of stuff, but we all decided to get together again and get together on September 2nd of last year, and it's coming up on a year that we did this follow-up investigation of Bigfoot in the Pine Barrens. And I called this video "On the Watch for Squatch" because we were really on high alert for what was down there. And prior to, I guess, July of last year, and just like this year, which happened again, the area that we were in had some wildfires, and the wildfires, it didn't decimate the forest, but it charred a lot of the trees. It's like if we were in that base camp when the fires were going on, we would have been right in the middle of all the fire. But when we got down, I wanted to go back to that area. Eric wanted to go to a different area to investigate this time. But I said, why go to a different area when we can go to the same area that we had that activity and see if there's anything back there? So when we got down to the Pine Barrens this time around last year, like I said, the trees were all charred, and it was kind of, it gave you the sense of like everything was dead down there. It was just like nothing going on. Well, that quickly changed. That quickly changed because that night, again, we get down there, we're in base camp, and we got there as it started getting dark. And so we got down to the base camp, same place we were, the year and a half prior. And we sat down, started doing our talks, and kind of catching up with what those guys have been doing, research wise, and pretty much uneventful, sitting there. We did notice a couple of like weird tracks, but we were trying to figure out if they were like human tracks or they could have been some other tracks. But it was that there, some of the area was kind of like a little messed up in some of these areas. There's also a lot of leaf litter, so it's really hard to get any kind of track impressions per se. But we were using a light and trying to figure it out that way. So we went back to sit in base camp, and Eric was telling us that I guess about 6 months now. This was after we were there, that second time there in October of 2021. He and Art came back to that area and did some reconnaissance in the area, and they were getting all kinds of weird, like red lights in the woods. It's very like pinpoints of light, and or like red. You could say it was eye shine, but they didn't know it was just these red pinpoints of light. So that was interesting. And Eric was on an expedition and saw a light come down from one of the trees, and he thought it was a hiker that was coming toward him, or at best maybe a plane coming in, or the way the angle was of the land. But it wasn't that. This light came up to him and like maybe about 100 feet away, and then just disappeared. And we're getting a lot of reports of these weird lights in the woods, that are also associated with Bigfoot. So going back to base camp, and we're sitting there, and now this is September 3rd of 2023. Art, unfortunately, is going through a little bit of a. He's going through some cancer treatments and has to take medications. But to look at him, you wouldn't think that anything's wrong with him. He's doing great and he's getting through it the best he can. He was sitting there and he says, "Guys, I don't know if it's my medications or what, but my heart is really racing right now." Well, with that, as he says that, we hear a crack branch behind us. Eric's daughter is on the camera helping us. We all whip around to where we heard that, and we look over, and there is a branch, a big, thick branch, just like moving erratically, like something just hit it. And it was just, and then for 2 seconds, I got up and I'm looking and I see two yellow eyes about 7 feet up in the tree line, and then they disappeared. And you could hear this, whatever it was, lumbering back into the cedar forest or back to the cedar swamp. So that really set us up on. I mean, we all were jumped up on that one. This is even more so than the first one. And again, we thought we'd get no activity, but there was more activity this time than the first time. But something is definitely there, and we went back. We looked through therm. We didn't see anything on thermal. We didn't see any tracks, but we were getting. We did get some whoops. More, not really whoops, but we got more howls that could have been associated with coyotes, possibly. But this thing was there, and it was undeniably there. And just to see those two yellow eyes, and then they disappeared. It was just amazing. So and then we wrapped up the investigation, and the weird thing about this, now I know this is going to sound crazy, but I mean the whole thing sounds crazy, but it happened, and you can't write this kind of stuff. This stuff happened. I always blame it on Dominic too, because I feel like Dominic is the magnet for these kind of things, whether it's Bigfoot or when we were out in Elkhorn. But um, it's the thing is, Art and Dominic earlier that day were talking, and Dominic, since he's a spirit medium, can see Art's aura, and he was asking a lot of questions like, you've been thinking about your mother a lot. His mother had just passed, and Art said, yeah. And whenever he thinks about his mother, uh, Dominic can see this like very white aura around Art. But somehow Dominic, I don't know how to explain this properly, but he, and I don't know if some of your listeners would even, identify with this as well. But Dominic figured that Art somehow, this Bigfoot or Sasquatch is seeing through Art's eyes, and vice versa. And the reason why is Art has this incredible connection with Sasquatch. Being a researcher and having this connection. And I'm thinking to myself, well, when we were sitting in base camp and Art's heart is starting to race, and that's why I titled this "On the Watch for Squatch," because this thing was looking at us in base camp, and I'm wondering if it was getting scared, and that Art was feeling those feelings. It's hard to describe, but that's kind of like what the theory is there. And so that was our experience in the Pine Barrens. And it's just still something that we're wrapping our heads around. I mean, we can go back, numerous times, but I mean, it's like we always leave with more questions than answers.
Yeah, that is very interesting. And I watched the show. You can certainly hear the vocalizations in the background. And Do you think that they were just being playful or threatening, like territorial?
I don't think it was a threat, although, you know, you never know. You just never know with those kind of things. I think it was more curious and, like you said, more playful than anything. Or just really just curious, just to kind of like, who are these people? And he mentioned something really interesting, and it really struck a light bulb with me. Like whenever he goes research or goes investigating Bigfoot in the Pine Barrens, he always wears the same clothes because you want familiarity with these creatures. You want them to know because they're gonna recognize you, even though we can't see them and they're seeing us. And I thought that was an interesting concept because, you know, again, it's the non-threatening kind of thing. It's like, well, if they know that you're there, doing the research and you're not really going to be, hurting them or not, that could be one aspect of it. But I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I find to be very fascinating is the fact that you guys went out there, did wood knocks and vocalizations, and you guys got a response. Typically, with the Bigfoot community, you'll hear them say, "Oh, that never works. People that go out there and do that stuff are morons, and you're never
Yeah.
going to get any activity that way." But you proved it in your video that going out there, doing the research, calling, doing wood knocks, actually got a response from these creatures. And another thing that I found to be very interesting is you guys were running night vision, and I get this all the time from people, and I think it's a common thing for people in the community to hear something and just go along with it. Like night vision is never going to work. You can't use night vision. They see the IR, but you guys had the
Mhm.
night vision going, and these things were vocalizing. So that proves that anything is possible in this field.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. I mean, and again, we went out there thinking we didn't go out there expecting to hear or see anything. That was the other thing. We didn't have any. I personally didn't have any expectation. Yeah, I mean, it was like there was the excitement factor of it, but I didn't go out there with a preconceived thing like that we were going to even have that. Because again, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know what those whoops, what would that be? And when you see these guys on TV, you don't know with all the fakery going on out there, you just don't know. You don't have any, clear definitive evidence, except for the Patterson Gimlin film, which I truly believe is real. And they were just there at the right place at the right time, man. And like we just happened to be there. And this time frame around October of 2021, it was amazing, man. I mean, we had like the week prior to that, we went to um, we went to Elkhorn, Wisconsin, to investigate the Beast of Bray Road. And I don't know if you want me to talk about this now, but I can kind of give the correlations to the two investigations if you want.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that you guys were hearing the same vocalizations in the same time frame in Wisconsin that you guys heard down there in the Pine Barrens. If you would go into that, please.
Yeah, it was amazing investigation. And again, I go into it not thinking that not thinking we'd see anything, and also having no protection. And I'll tell you why in a minute. That was stupid. But so one of our fans and friends, Ellen Collins, she asked me, she's like, you guys, and she's out in Wisconsin. She said, we should do a video on the Beast of Bray Road. And I said, well, I would love to do that. I had heard about this creature. I didn't really put too much into it, but I had heard about it. It was supposed to be a 6 to 7 foot tall, upright canine dogman creature that walks on two legs, and then on all four legs, on fours, it's really fast. So I said, well, that would be phenomenal. I would love to do that. Well, Ellen wound up, just paying the freight to have us out there to do that. And we're forever grateful for her for doing that for the two videos that we did. So we got out there. This was October 2nd through the 4th that we were in Elkhorn. And so this is a week before we went to the Pine Barrens. So we're in Elkhorn, and we met up with Lee Hample, and we were on his property in Elkhorn. Now, Bray Road which is getting a lot of the activity that people have seen this creature over the years. His hay farm, is only like 2/10 of a mile from Bray Road. So we went out on Bray Road, we did some drone footage, and we were shocked to find out that there was this huge cutout, like something had been going through there. It was bigger than deer, and it was this huge swath in the corn going from Lee's all the way across Bray Road and then over into the quarry, which gave us like some more ideas of where this thing could be hiding out. So the night of October 3rd is a night I will never forget, man. We were in Lee's barn, and Lee has a 35-acre hayfield, and he's a hay farmer. But he used to be a school teacher, so he was a school teacher for the Wakanda, Illinois school district for like 35 years, and had no interest in the paranormal whatsoever. Could care less about it until he bought the farm that he's on now. It bought it from his mother's estate, and the neighbors said, "Oh yeah, that's the farm where the creature's running around." He's like, "What?" And he didn't believe anybody until he had his own encounter in May of 2014, where he saw two red glowing eyes staring back at him from the barn that he was pulling out of, and it was up toward his barn area, and it leaped about 15 feet in the air and disappeared. And he couldn't believe it. He was absolutely shocked. So it put him in this whole dynamic of trying to get evidence. And the next day, him and his brother found footprints. They found tracks. They found a 5 pad 7-toe track, which was really weird. Which is nothing is even described like that in anything. They found all these square tracks too in the field. So, with all of this evidence, I mean, Lee has got thousands and thousands of pictures. Even hair samples that under the microscope, the hair samples have they're translucent. There's no medulla. So it's really the evidence that he's got is absolutely amazing, and he's been trying to get some DNA testing done, but people want to charge thousands of dollars to do that, and he's a farmer. He doesn't want to do that, and so we're trying to find somebody to help do that because I think there's a real great case for something that's otherworldly that's there. Because the night of October 3rd, we're in Lee's barn, and he's showing us all the pictures and all of his evidence, and we were just blown away by everything. And if you know Lee, he is so sincere, and his brother Fred are phenomenal people. So I said to Lee after his presentation, I said, "Lee, is it okay if we do a night investigation in the field back there?" Because we had been doing some reconnaissance earlier in the day. We did some drone footage, and I baited the area that Lee's been getting all this activity with steak bones. Probably not a good idea, but I did it anyway. And all day my mind is saying, "Well, was that a good or bad idea?" Um, so the night of the investigation, Lee says, "Absolutely, you can go down there, no problem." So we get down there, and we took the four-wheelers to get down there because it's a haul to get down to this area called the bait area. And Lee has a lot of trail cams set up around the field, so he's been getting pictures and shots of this thing, you know, blurry. Sometimes it's in focus. It's in the field, a big black mass, and one's right up to the camera. You can almost see the pectoral muscle of this thing. So, and he's got a couple of pictures that just blew me away. But we were down at the bait area, and Scott, our cameraman, was having a hard time connecting the GoPro. So right away we were having like difficulties there. And to be honest, we thought we'd have to scrub the whole investigation because when we left the barn, it looked like it was going to rain. The skies were getting cloudy, but we went down to the Bay Area and we looked up, and Dominic looked up, and it was clear as a bell. It was clear skies. And so whatever was there just passed over. But as he's looking up, Dominic's like, "What the hell is that?" And as he's looking up, we all look up, and here's this solid orb of light that is going over the field right over top of us. And it's a solid orb. It's not blinking, it's silent, and it's only maybe about 1,000 feet up. And you could see other planes in the sky. And this thing's going toward one of the planes, and we're wrapping our heads around it. We're like, "What the hell is this?" And we're saying, "Well, there's a plane there. There's a plane there. What is that?" And with that, it does a little 45-degree angle and disappears. And then we were blown away. We were like, "Oh my," and we got it all on video too. Scott was able to get it on video. Right after that happened, we heard a howl in the distance, and Dominic and I look at each other, and then we hear one closer, and we're like looking at each other again. And these are not coyote howls. This is something completely different. So with the second howl, Dominic says to Ellen, "Are you hearing these howls?" Because she's still looking up in the sky at the UFO. And she goes, "Yeah, it's coming from over there, from the corn." She's pointing toward the corn. And with that, the third howl comes so close to us, it sounded like a man screaming in the field. It was this low, guttural scream, growl, yell combination, very low and deep. And you've heard it. I'm sure you've heard it on the video. But it was we were just blown away. The fear factor was there. Like, what the hell is this? And it was like, I was like, what are we hearing? And we were stunned. We were like, and people are like, "Why didn't you guys stay out there?" And I was like, "Well, first of all, we didn't have any protection whatsoever, and I don't know what these things are going to do, or this thing, but we think that there was probably a pack of something out there, but it was definitely not wolves. It was definitely not coyote. It was not fox. It wasn't a screech owl. It wasn't anything like that. Elk, nothing like that." So the thing that got me though, we still did like, investigate. Even though we heard that, we were still there for a little bit longer. Right after that third howl, a mist came up from the field that we were in. It was a very weird thing. It was starting to mess with our electronics, which we were having problems with anyway, but the camera thankfully didn't have a problem that way. Um, so I said to Dominic said to Scott, "Shine the light over into the corn and see if we see anything." Well, with that, we shine the light over to the corn and we see two yellow eyes about 7 feet up in the corn, darting back and forth, like looking at us, like it's like looking. And that's what really got me. And I said, "Okay, we got to get out of here," because this was saying, "Get out of here. This is my territory." And it was the most spookiest night, man. And then on top of that, I mean, there's a whole plethora of things that happened, but on top of that, the entire town of Elkhorn lost power that night. So it was just, I mean, it was insane, man. Um, so we had all that evidence. I did mention in this as well, in this investigation, during the day on October 3rd, we went over to do some reconnaissance during the day in the field. And Scott he builds high-end drones and they're phenomenal. And he has to wear virtual reality glasses in order to, see what he's doing. So he had us on his screen in the glasses. And as we're walking through the field, in this one part of the field that's over by that bait area, we disappeared off of his screen digitally. He didn't know, he couldn't find us. So he had to lift the glasses up and say, "Okay, well, okay, there they are there." But for whatever reason, in that area, we disappeared. So then the thought process goes, okay, is there a portal there? Are there, because there's portals all over the world, but is this where this creature's been coming in and out of? And the other thing too, in Lee's pictures, in his presentations, he has a picture which just completely blows me away. Actually, two pictures. One is this picture in the daytime of these orbs that are in the sky that are translucent, and you could see something in the orb that looks like it could be the creature. It's this black thing in the middle that looks like a cross, and it's in this round sphere. And there was like four or five of these things. So my thought was like, my God, when we saw that UFO go over that night, could this thing have been deposited? Could it have dropped to the ground? Could it have been landed or something? So that was one process. But there's another picture that he has, which is unbelievable. So I mentioned the mist that we encountered. Well, he has lots of pictures of this weird mist. And so there's a picture of the mist, middle of the daytime, that there's on the trail cam, you could see the dead deer that he has there. He's got a roadkill deer that was in that area. So you see the mist come over this deer, and in the next picture, the mist is gone, and so's the deer. So, and those pictures are only 30 seconds timed apart. So there is some really weird activity going on out there. And you know, for all intents and purposes, it's the dog man activity. Because people have been seeing this, it looks like a dog man on two legs. We did a follow up in April of 2022 out in Elkhorn, and that time we did not encounter it. But what we did get was we had a town hall meeting with over 140 people showed up to tell their story of seeing this creature, and they all described the same thing: the way it walks on two legs, and when it's walking on two legs, it looks like it's gliding, and then when it's on all fours, it's really fast. And then the following, I guess, the following few months after that, we did another investigation of the beast of Bryn Athyn, which is Bryn Athyn, Pennsylvania, which is another dogman sighting area where people have been seeing this creature, and they're describing the same creature that people in Elkhorn are describing. So I didn't realize that there are these dogman sightings as well all over the world, just like and all over the country, really, but and the world, just like Bigfoot. So again, are these things coming in and out of portals? Are they coming in and out of our reality somehow? That's the biggest mystery. And you mentioned night vision. You know, there's some research being done now on light spectrum because you know how you can get more activity at night through night vision, like whether it's orbs and in the ghost situation. So there's something to do with that level of light. There could be a Bigfoot right there, in front of us in the daytime. We just can't see it, or I always like to think of like a deer. You know how a deer can blend into their environment so well. This is something that Bigfoot does. I mean, it could be right there and you just can't see it. So I don't know. I mean, who knows what the answer is? But I mean, at least we're trying to have the conversation of what it could be, and we're really getting out on site rather than behind our computers and doing that kind of thing. Although we do a lot of research that way, but getting out into the field is really where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. And out of all these research areas, what area do you want to go back to the most?
Oh man, well, Elkhorn number one. Elkhorn is just there is something there, and the activity that we got that night was just absolutely off the charts and still happening, and it's still going. Lee's still telling me that that he's getting activity out there, and still hearing those screams and those weird howls. So definitely, there still needs to be more work done out there. And just being the independent guy that I am, it's hard to get out there because then it's very expensive to try to do that. But that's why we were thankful that Ellen was able to, come to our rescue, and she's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the research that you conducted out there, what would you do differently if you returned to the area?
That's a really good question. I would first of all, um, I would want to get more video evidence, and I'd have probably a little bit more protection with us as well. That would be probably number one. But I would want to try to capture more audio. Um, and if folks can understand this, we had no high tech audio and really, a decent camera, but we didn't have any high tech stuff. We had little lavaliers. They're called Cinco microphones, and it was so loud on site that little microphone picked up that howl or that scream, and it was amazing, man. So I would want to go back and probably do some more high end audio, and I would want to photograph the area a little bit more rather than the videotaping is great, but I'd want to take photos, and that was one thing because I was so caught up in the mystery of it all that it didn't dawn on me to take pictures that night with my phone. Because you never know what you're going to get there, and we could have captured something there. Now the weird thing is, Ellen had a dream uh, that the creature had put its claw in the palm of her hand and told her why it's there. And what I find very, very interesting is Lee also had the same dream. And when you see Ellen in the video, when she's looking up, when Dominic says, "Are you hearing these howls?" She said that in her dream, that's when that whole thing happened. And you could look at her and say, she looks like she's in a little bit of a trance, like she's looking up into the sky. But she's saying that in that part of that video, and in part of her dream is when this creature was talking to her. So I don't know. It's just it just boggles my mind, man. I mean, it's like and again, I go out there not expecting anything, and that's what kind of activity we got. And you couldn't have asked for that. We hit the trifecta. Well, I always say we hit the paranormal lottery that night.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thought of big or dog man being out there is just terrifying. If I ever encounter one, I'm gonna put a bullet in it just because
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like they're up to no good. And if there's one out there, there's probably more. Do you think that there's a paranormal aspect with the corn? I hear a lot of encounter stories in the corn.
So if people could understand this, Lee's hayfield is like a huge rectangle, so it's 35 acres. So the hay was down. The hay was completely cut down. So you had this huge rectangle. So the corn was on one side, and then it was down on the other end going across, and then there was corn behind us as well. I also have to say there was no wind on this night. It was completely silent. And the corn could very well, I mean, it was great hiding territory for the thing because because when we went back in April, the corn was down. So and we didn't see it that time, because there was nothing there to hide it. But we did find, which was really interesting, we found a water source, and we found kind of like a dog man highway, which kind of coincided with what we found going across the field again in 2021, where the creature's going across the road into the quarry. So there's a lot more that's got to be looked at there, and that case is definitely not closed. I mean, there's a lot more there. There's a lot of theories about the Indian burial grounds there that this thing is connected to. There's also, the paranormal aspects of this thing go well beyond a flesh and blood creature. I mean, it's like it's there. It's for sure there because I know it was there with the eye shine coming back at us, and we knew it wasn't deer or anything like that. It was a solid something standing up, and you know the whole dynamic of that thing was just like just mind blowing. And just the fact that people are getting more and more evidence all the time and seeing this thing, and just and kind of like so much so that they're just like, oh, it's the dog man again, So it's like it's become commonplace, but it's a dangerous thing. And I mean, we all have to give our thanks to Linda Godfrey, who really brought the Beast of Bray Road to the mass public, in the early '90s, because you know this creature goes back to the '30s, like to around, I think the first sighting was around 1936, but and then it went quiet for a while, and I only think it went quiet. I think there were sightings going on all the time, but it went quiet because nobody wanted to talk about it, because you had the ridicule and everything back at that point. But back in the early '90s, a couple saw this thing crossing the road again and brought it to Linda's attention. Linda did a drawing of it, and then she started writing books about it. So, I mean, this is something that is out there. I always say that there's a little bit of truth to the folklore, because at the end of the day, people are experiencing and people are seeing something, and that something is what we're investigating, and I'll tell you, man, the profound effects it's had on people, it tells me two things. I'm pretty good at discerning the BS from the truth, but when I investigate witnesses and their voices are cracking, they're getting goosebumps, they are having a hard time talking about this stuff, something happened. Something happened. It's like a detective. You're being we feel like we're paranormal detectives, because you're trying to help these people out, trying to get to the answer, trying to get to the bottom of the bottom of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever you first got out there, you mentioned like this trail. Was it kind of like a gator trail, like whenever they come out of the grass and go into the water, like you can see all the grass matted down?
It was like that, but wider, much wider. It looked, and it wasn't like a vehicle wide. It was like half, half the size of a car, but but not, um, but not as like a. Yeah, you could say it would, and it wasn't a deer, so it was more the size of a half size of a car going through there. That's the kind of like swath it was making. But again, there's no cars going through there. It was just something made, and it wasn't like an ATV or something like that either. Because we even checked that theory out because Lee has these another video of these UFO type lights going through the woods across from his field. And we went over there and checked it out because I thought, well, maybe they're ATVs, maybe they're like just the four wheelers or whatever of somebody going through the woods. And that's what was making those lights go through the woods. But they were very high up, which was another reason, which was kind of made me scratch my head. But we went over to those woods on the second follow up, and there was no way that you could even ride through there because the woods were so thick. So that kind of blew that theory out of the water. So look, we try to go in and debunk it, as well, and try to go in because we're not going to say on every investigation, oh, this place is haunted, or that's definitely a Bigfoot, or that's definitely a dog man. I want to look at it like, what really is going on here and and that's why a lot of these investigations, you know, we're leaving with more questions than we do answers, and then finding that there is really something to this, and that people are experiencing this, whether it's ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, or Dogman.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of my viewers say I ask leading questions, but do you think that the cryptid activity is connected with the paranormal and portals?
I had a good friend, and that's a good question. I had a good friend of mine tell ask me, "Do you think there would be any kind of way that they could track this where with the portal situation saying like, well, if you say somebody has an dogman sighting at Elkhorn, and then they have another dogman sighting somewhere else in the country, like time that, like time to where is that next sighting? Like where did that next sighting happen and where and what time? And the next sighting after that. And track these particular sightings and these particular occurrences and see if there's any truth to that paranormal, the portal activity, to where this thing could be, say it's in Elkhorn 1 minute and then it's out here in Philadelphia the next minute, and then it's able to go through this because, even with the Patterson Gimlin film, I mean, the creature, you see it walking off into the woods, but then it disappears. They ran out of film, but he said it disappeared. It was there and then it was gone. And that's what we hear a lot of times. We see that people see these creatures, they're there and then they're gone. So some people are saying that these things just kind of like just implode too, in an energy field. So who knows? I mean, we have to look at all those possibilities. So your question was not leading. Your question was really good because that's exactly what we should be looking at. Rather than, we could all say, hey, it's a guy in a suit. We could, and because there's so much fakery going on out there, um, which is crazy, and with the AI stuff, but every once in a while there's a piece of footage I see that makes me raise an eyebrow. And, and that's why I like to go back to look at the old footage from like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, because we didn't have any AI then. We didn't have any digital anything then. So any of the UFO photos that you've got are just things that just happened, that people just had gotten. And even and with Bigfoot too. So I just find the whole genre fascinating, man. And we've got so many more stories to tell. We've got so many more videos coming out in October. I've got like 28 days booked in October. I'm going to be speaking. I'm actually going to be speaking at the Mothman Festival on the 21st of September down in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Um, and uh, and I'm going to be speaking up at the Exeter UFO Festival at the end of this month in Exeter, New Hampshire. So I love the speaking engagements, and we meet some great people who have also got great questions, and we all try to converge on this topic and try to get more answers.
I'm glad that you're out there looking for answers. Do you think it's strange that you've done paranormal activity in the past, and once you get into the cryptid subject, you go out to these research areas and you're getting things right off the bat?
I I always, like I said before, I always blame it on Dominic because whether we're doing a ghost investigation or we're doing a Bigfoot investigation, Dogman, mostly with ghosts, I go into those very, very skeptically. Because I say to myself, well, were people hearing pipes in the basement heating up? Are they, footsteps on the roof? Is there an animal up there or something like that? And then when Dominic comes in, he's tuned in on a whole different dynamic of events that have happened at that place. And so when we go into something like that, I'll know the history and I'll never tell him anything that's going on. Um, so when he's telling me what I already know, then I have to start thinking to myself, well, he's really tuning into something that has gone on here. And then all of a sudden a story starts unfolding, and then the paranormal aspects of this thing, then we start getting orbs, we start getting voices, and the other thing is too, when like in a ghost situation, we're not using all the gimmicks, we're not using like spirit boxes, we're not using REM pods or anything like that, because number one, they're going to give you a false reading. You can put a REM pod down anywhere and that thing will go off because it's going to hit, there's electromagnetic energy all over. So you've got to really be careful where you put those things. We basically use a similar thing, but not with lights or anything. It's a magnetometer. Now we were in this field where people had seen this dogman in Bryn Athyn. So we were in the middle of this field, and this thing is going off the charts. And there's no wires around because if people know what a magnetometer is, if even if you take that and put it up to a light, it's going to register. I mean, and if the lights shut off, obviously the electricity's off, but any wiring that's on, it's going to detect that. But but here we are in the middle of this field, and it's going off the charts, and it's in an area that people had seen this creature, and it was almost like it was coming in and out of this portal. The woman said it was almost like snapshots of seeing this creature. They saw it in one spot, then it was in another spot, then another spot, then another spot. It flashed into, and then all of a sudden it was gone. So yeah, all of those aspects are incredible, man. And when we get on site, typically, we just did an investigation last Monday at this haunted hotel, and we didn't really get that much activity. But Dominic was tuning in on a woman that was in the bar, a spirit of a woman, and so you never know where these things are going to lead. Again, you try to go into it with an open mind. And then when you do get those paranormal aspects and orbs and voices and all kinds shadow figures, it just adds more to the mystery. So, and to get it on video is what, that's what you want to try to do because we're all about truth-based investigating. So we want to be able to put that truth out there and say, look, this is what happened on site. This is what we got. We can't explain it. Maybe you guys can, something like that. So we're always open to look. The paranormal community is so small, and there's some great people that are investigating this a lot of incredible things, and it's just getting weirder all the time, man. So uh we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, but and we're going to try to stay safe at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Was Eric Spinner having activity in the Pine Barrens prior to you coming out to the area?
Yeah, he's been getting he goes on a lot of expeditions with folks. So he'll take people out for, to go, Bigfoot hunting and things like that. And a couple of occasions they've gotten tracks, they found tracks on the riverbank that they've casted. He got hair samples. He actually had stones thrown at him from something. Also, he has a great picture. I'll have to send it to you. He has a picture of a Bigfoot on thermal, but not in New Jersey. I think it was in New York. They were doing an expedition in New York. But yeah, he's had some activity down there where, and that's why he wanted us to come down. because they were getting all these kind of whoops and stuff like that happening before, we got there. And so yeah, so that's why we definitely had to go down there and check that out.
Yeah, and the wooden bat that he uses, is there anywhere that I can purchase that same bat? The ones that they're backhanding
Oh yeah,
against a tree?
the Squatch stick.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I I'll find out and I will let you know. I think that he got it at some kind of Bigfoot conference, I think, but I will let you know for sure.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything else that you want to mention on this podcast? Any more encounters, experiences, any
I mean,
tactics?
yeah, we've had so many encounters, but no, I think for what we're talking about here with Bigfoot, and the dog man, I mean, we've got some other cases that we're going to be doing. We actually want to do a follow up to the Beast of Bryn Athyn over here in Pennsylvania, and definitely want to go back to Lee's property one of these days and do some more investigating there. In the meantime, I wrote a book, my very first book here. It's called Eric Mintel Investigates Casebook Investigations, Stories, Encounters, and Otherworldly Contact, which is available on Amazon. And I, basically wrote about a lot of the cases that we've been on with ghosts, UFOs, Dogman, Bigfoot. So, and even a haunted vampire museum that we actually have been investigating, which have been getting some incredible, incredible activity, including which I could not believe when I listened to that second howl in Elkhorn, that there was a growl that happened, and for whatever reason, I never listened to it on headphones. But for just about a month ago, I put the headphones on and listened to those howls again. There was a growl that was much closer to us than previously thought. And this growl was the same growl that we all heard in this vampire museum. So there's some kind of weird connection there, man. And look, yeah, I stay protected. I kind of like don't go down in that road. You know what I'm saying? Even when we investigated that dark energy, we had our other psychic medium, Julie Krause. She saged us and cleansed the whole area there. So um, but we don't tend to do that. But a lot of these paranormal encounters, have a lot of that dark energy to it. So, it's like how we investigate and how we're going to go about it the next time gives us better tools, to try to get to that truth and be a little bit more protected. But you've got to get on site, and that's what we've been doing. But I was just I was just blown away by hearing that growl, and I couldn't believe it. So we're still looking into that, and we're doing a new series for this vampire museum as well. So that's all on my YouTube channel, and I hope everybody can get a chance to watch that. And I really appreciate you having me on the show, man. This is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you decided to come on the show and you reached out to me. And it's really cool that you investigate different aspects of the activity, whether it's the paranormal, UFOs, and cryptids. And I think it's a better way to obtain an idea of kind of what's going on because there's so many aspects to all this weirdness, whether it's like underground bases, underground worlds, portals, flesh and blood cryptids that are out there that nobody can put down with a firearm. And I just think there's really something strange going on with everything.
Hmm. Absolutely, I agree.
Okay. Well, yeah, if we can do an investigation in the future and you're ever up for coming down into the Ozarks, hit me up
Oh
and
man,
I think that'd be
absolutely.
awesome.
Absolutely, man. And listen, I really appreciate you're doing a lot of really great work, man. And people should really be thankful that you're out there because you're really giving people some incredible stories. My good buddy Tim O'Brien, who had the Bigfoot encounter with a deer being thrown at him, is one of your stories there. I mean, I met Tim and Leslie. They're phenomenal people, man. And when I talked to Tim about this, it's just still so burned in his memory. And so stuff like this, so keep telling the stories, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim was a great guest and yeah, that was just a terrifying
Oh
experience
my
that
god,
he had out there.
it was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Eric. Well, I appreciate you for telling your experiences and your encounters here on Sasquatch Theory. and keep up the great work, my friend.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. And hopefully we get to speak again in the future, and good luck on your investigations and filmmaking, man.
Thank you, buddy.
All right. You have a good one, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, Eric, thank you very much for sharing your encounters and experiences with me here on Sasquatch Theory. I watched the YouTube videos that you create, and you did an excellent job at documenting the activity. And a lot of people say that you can't capture these things on video, but you've proved it. You had a night vision camera, you had a camera itself, and they exposed themselves. So I think anything's possible as long as you're out there trying. And yeah, I'm really glad that you contacted me and shared your experiences with me. I've heard a lot of talk about New Jersey and the Pine Barrens. It sounds like there's a lot of activity up there, and I have noted in my own personal research that Sasquatch like to hang out in the pine trees, so it makes sense that they're in the Pine Barrens. I've also had Bigfoot experiences where there's only oak trees, but there's always pine trees nearby, so it's really hard to say, and I think the Sasquatch like to hang out in the pines because they can blend in very well. It's nice and dark in there, and the pine needles are soft on their feet, and it makes it easy for them to sneak up on their prey. I would like to meet up with Eric Mintel one day in the future and hopefully do an investigation with him if he's ever in the Ozarks or somewhere nearby. Eric, if you're listening, if you need a research partner one day, feel free to contact me and I'll see what I can do. If you guys want, you can support the channel by purchasing some merchandise or by sending a PayPal donation, but don't feel obligated. That's just for the people that contact me asking me how they can support the channel in any way, and I figured I'd just let people know. So don't feel obligated to send me anything. This isn't about money, but it does help out the research and it helps out with equipment. All right, I appreciate everyone for tuning in today, and until the next one, take care and be safe out there.